Hi. My name is Noah Bennett. I'm 24 years old.
The night she said it, she didn't even look up from her phone.
My parents keep asking why I'm still with you, she said casually.
And honestly, I no longer have an answer.
No anger. No fight. Just boredom.
Like I was a subscription she forgot to cancel.
5 years together. Late-night drives.
Job applications I helped her rewrite. Rent I quietly covered when she was between opportunities.
And now? She didn't have an answer.
I looked at her for a long moment.
Then I nodded.
You're right.
She blinked.
What?
You're right, I repeated calmly.
You shouldn't stay with someone you can't explain.
No shouting. No begging. No dramatic speech. I walked into the bedroom, pulled out my suitcase, folded my clothes neatly. She thought I was being dramatic. Until I packed my laptop. My documents. The watch she gave me on our 3rd anniversary, I left it on the dresser. When I walked past her, she finally stood up.
Wait, what are you doing?
I picked up a pen. Left a note on the kitchen counter.
Now you and your parents can figure out together why you're single.
And I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it. Quietly. She thought I'd cool off. Thought I'd circle the block. Call in an hour. Come back by morning.
I didn't. Instead, I drove straight to the one place she never bothered asking about, the leasing office.
Because here's the part she forgot. The apartment was in my name. Only mine.
When we first moved in, her credit wasn't strong enough.
So I signed. Paid the deposit. Handled the utilities. She decorated. I secured.
By 9 a.m. the next morning, I was sitting across from the property manager. I'll be terminating occupancy, I said calmly. Effective immediately.
He looked surprised.
Both tenants.
There's only one tenant, I replied. Paperwork is quiet power. By noon, the locks were scheduled to be changed.
By 2 p.m., utilities were being transferred.
By 4 p.m., I got the call.
She says there must be a mistake.
There wasn't. She called me 17 times. Texted 26. The last message read, "You're seriously doing this?" I stared at the screen for a moment, then replied with 3 words. "You were right." And turned my phone off. Because sometimes the strongest response is agreement. The call came the next morning. Not from her. From her father. His voice was sharp. Controlled anger.
The kind of tone men use when they assume they still hold authority.
What exactly do you think you're doing? He demanded. I leaned back in my chair, calm.
I was already in my new office space, the one she always called a waste of money.
I agreed with her, I said simply. Silence.
She's standing here with her mother, he continued.
She says you locked her out.
No, I corrected calmly. I ended my lease.
Another pause. He hadn't expected technical precision. He expected emotion.
You're ruining her stability.
I almost smiled.
4 or 5 years, I said evenly. I covered rent when she was unemployed.
Paid bills quietly.
Helped her build stability. If she no longer has an answer for why she's with me, then she shouldn't need what I provide either.
Her mother's voice appeared faintly in the background. This is childish. No, I replied.
It's alignment.
They had spent years questioning me. My salary. My ambition. My future prospects. But they never knew. I had just signed a partnership contract the week before. 6 figures. Equity stake. I wasn't the uncertain boyfriend anymore. I was the man she doubted, right before he leveled up. Her father's tone shifted slightly.
What do you want?
Nothing, I said calmly.
That's the point.
And I hung up. Because when someone says they don't know why they are with you, you don't argue. You remove the question entirely. She showed up 3 days later. Not at the apartment. At my office. Glass building. Clean lobby.
Receptionist who asked, "Do you have an appointment?"
She didn't. But I told them to let her up.
When she walked in, she looked different. Not put together.
Not confident. Just unsettled. You really did it, she said. I did, I replied calmly. Her eyes scanned the room. The desk. The city view. The framed partnership agreement on the wall.
This is new.
It is. She swallowed.
You didn't tell me about this deal.
You didn't ask, I said evenly.
You were busy figuring out why you were still with me.
That landed. Silence stretched between us. You're being cold, she said quietly. No, I replied.
I'm being consistent.
She stepped closer. 5 years. And you just walk away. I looked at her carefully. Not angry. Not bitter. Just clear.
You walked away first, I said. You just didn't realize it when you said you had no answer.
Her voice cracked slightly.
My parents were just asking questions.
They always were, I nodded.
And you always needed their approval more than your own clarity.
That hurt her. I saw it. But truth doesn't need volume. It just needs timing. She looked around one more time.
You've changed.
I shook my head lightly. No.
I just stopped proving myself to people who were never convinced.
She didn't have a response this time. And for the first time in 5 years. Neither did I. She didn't leave immediately.
She stood there, staring at the skyline behind me like it had personally betrayed her. Then she said something I never expected to hear.
We can fix this. I didn't respond. She stepped closer. I didn't mean it like that.
I was just frustrated.
My parents get in my head sometimes. I was stressed.
I didn't think you'd actually leave.
There it was. She didn't think I would leave. That was the whole problem.
You didn't lose me because of your parents, I said calmly. You lost me because you agreed with them.
Her eyes watered slightly.
I was just venting.
No, I replied.
You were evaluating.
Silence. Then came the offer. I'll move out of their house, she said quickly. I'll stop listening to them. We can start fresh. I'll support you. I'll tell them they were wrong. Support me. Now.
After the deal. After the office.
After the upgrade. I studied her carefully.
You didn't believe in me when I was building, I said. You only see me now that it's built.
That hit harder than anything else.
She whispered. I was scared.
I was struggling, I replied.
There's a difference.
Her voice dropped.
So that's it.
I leaned forward slightly. Calm. Certain.
You said you didn't have an answer.
A pause.
I gave you one. She stood there for a long moment, realizing something she hadn't expected.
I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't negotiating. I was done. And for the first time since we met, she was the one trying to convince me.
By evening, her parents decided to intervene.
Their calls came in rapid succession.
My phone buzzed relentlessly. Mother.
Father. Mother again. I ignored them all.
Then, a text from her father.
We need to talk. Tonight.
Your behavior is unacceptable.
I smiled faintly. Calm. Unshaken.
By 7 p.m., they arrived at my office, unannounced, thinking confrontation could reverse the outcome. They barged in, voices raised, assumptions hanging thick in the air. I don't know what you're teaching her, her mother spat. But this is childish. I stood and walked toward them slowly, hands at my sides.
Quietly. Measured.
You assumed, I said softly, letting the words land, that 5 years of patience, loyalty, and consistency could be ignored. You assumed threats, volume, and fear would bring me back.
You miscalculated. Her father's jaw tightened. You're young. You don't understand.
I understand more than you ever gave me credit for, I interrupted. Every document, every lease, every partnership agreement, all legally airtight.
All finalized. All visible now to them.
Their eyes darted to the framed papers on my wall. I didn't need to raise my voice. The evidence spoke louder than anger. Her mother whispered, almost to herself. Did we misjudge him?
I smiled faintly.
Calm, controlled. Yes.
You did.
And now, the question isn't why she's single, it's why you ever assumed you could dictate it.
The room went silent, thick with realization. For the first time, they weren't in control.
I was. By the next morning, the consequences of their miscalculation rippled beyond our apartment. Her parents' friends had called. Her extended family sent worried texts.
Gossip traveled faster than they anticipated.
She left him, one whispered.
No, another replied.
She didn't leave, he left, and she can't explain why she stayed. Meanwhile, I had already moved into my new apartment. Sleek, organized, mine. A space I controlled fully, no arguments, no interference, no assumptions.
Her parents attempted another call. Voicemail. Ignored. Her own mother sent a text.
We never realized he was always serious about his independence.
Exactly.
I watched quietly from my balcony, sunlight reflecting off the city skyline.
Calm. Unshaken. Victorious without a word raised. The woman who had doubted me?
Now forced to face the reality that she had chosen convenience over clarity. Her parents, embarrassed, unsettled, realizing they had underestimated the quiet man their daughter spent years with.
I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Silence carried all the power.
By evening, the lesson had reached every corner of her circle.
Never misjudge someone who quietly builds.
Never assume patience is weakness.
Never try to control what you cannot.
And for the first time in 5 years, the dynamic had completely shifted. I had walked away once, and in doing so, had ensured I would never be underestimated again. By the weekend, the city whispered of what had happened. Her parents realized, finally, that their assumptions had cost them credibility. Friends, family, and colleagues quietly acknowledged the man they underestimated was untouchable. I stood in my new apartment, sunlight streaming across the polished floors. My belongings arranged meticulously, my life rebuilt on precision, patience, and independence.
Her calls stopped.
Her texts slowed to a halt.
Silence was complete. I didn't need apologies.
I didn't need explanations. I had already spoken through action. Sometimes, power isn't loud. Sometimes, it doesn't yell.
It simply exists. Steady. Calm.
Unshakable.
Her parents?
They had to watch as their daughter faced the consequences of valuing their approval over her own clarity. She realized, too late, that I had given her one final answer. I am not here to be explained. I am not here to be measured by someone else's doubts. I am here to move forward, on my terms, quietly, decisively. I poured myself a glass of wine, the city lights reflecting in the glass. 5 years of being underestimated, questioned, and doubted had led to this serene victory.
The lesson was clear. For her. For them. For anyone who ever assumed patience or quietness equals weakness.
Never mistake silence for submission. Never underestimate the man who acts when the time is right. And as I watched the skyline, calm and victorious, I smiled softly. The quiet storm had won.